When we talk about spirituality and things like drugs or alcohol, our minds usually go straight to health warnings or maybe ideas about sin and being virtuous. But today, we're going to look at this from a completely different angle. It's a really specific, almost technical reason drawn from the integral yoga of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother for why these substances are seen as a massive roadblock to any real transformation. So let's just dive right in with the big question that changes the whole conversation. If banning this stuff isn't about traditional morality, being a good person versus a bad person, then what on earth is it about? This is where it starts to get really fascinating. Okay, so let's break this down. On one side, you've got your typical social morality. It's all about rules, conduct, what's sinful. But integral yoga, it looks at this from a purely technical standpoint. The issue isn't that these things are sinful, it's that they're just completely incompatible with the work you're trying to do. Think of it this way. It's like trying to run some super advanced, next-gen software on old, buggy, corrupted hardware. It's just not going to work. It's not a moral failure, it's a technical impossibility. The system will crash. And that brings us to the very heart of this path. The body isn't seen as some cage that the soul needs to escape from. No, not at all. It's called the adhara, which means a vessel or a foundational instrument. And this instrument needs to be perfected, cleaned, and tuned for a very, very big purpose. And here's the idea that changes everything. The whole point isn't just to get liberated from the body, but to achieve the transformation of the physical body itself. The goal is to bring a higher, more divine consciousness right down into our physical nature, into our very cells. And when that's the goal, well, suddenly the condition of that body, its brain, its nerves, becomes absolutely critically important. So how does this all work under the hood? What's really cool is how this inner system is all mapped out. To really get why intoxicants are such a showstopper, we need to look at the hidden machinery inside us, where all these habits and cravings actually live and operate. First up, there's something called the subconscious. Now, hold on, this is not the Freudian subconscious you might be thinking of, with all the repressed memories and whatnot. In this system, the subconscious is a deeply physical, almost robotic layer of who we are. It doesn't think, it doesn't feel, it just repeats. It's a creature of habit. And this is exactly where addiction takes root, as a purely mechanical repetition. And this quote from Sri Aurobindo just nails it. It explains that incredibly frustrating loop so many of us have felt. Your conscious mind can decide, okay, that's it, I'm done with this. But the subconscious, it just keeps running the old program. It demands the thing, like clockwork, long after you've stopped getting any real joy or pleasure out of it. It's just an automatic process. The second piece of our inner machinery is called the nervous envelope. Honestly, the best way to think of this is like our subtle physical immune system. It's this vital, protective shield that we all have. And its job is to filter out all the junk from the general atmosphere, negative energies, suggestions of illness, even bad vibes from other people. Most of us don't even know it's there, but it is constantly working to protect us. So now let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's see how different substances are said to uniquely sabotage this really delicate inner machinery. Each one has a specific target, and each one acts as an agent of unconsciousness, basically dimming the lights. This chart gives us a fantastic snapshot, and what's wild is how specific each one is, right? Tobacco is said to attack what's called Ajashakti, your power of will. Alcohol goes right for chit, consciousness itself. And drugs like LSD, they mess with your mental balance by plunging you into the lowest vital, the most primitive, chaotic layer of life energy. All right, let's break each of these down. When the Mother talks about tobacco, it's fascinating because from a yogic view, the main problem isn't just your lungs. It's the slow, steady erosion of your willpower and your memory, the very tools you need for any kind of conscious self-work. It's said to introduce this dullness, this inertia, right into the brain cells, making the mind less sharp and less receptive. And this story about Sri Aurobindo himself is just perfect. It shows the whole principle in action. See, he smoked cigars for years, but as a yogi, he was totally detached from it. The habit was there, but it was just mechanical. It wasn't a deep-seated desire. So the moment the Mother arrived and her refined physical consciousness found the smell sickening, he just stopped, overnight. No struggle, no drama. It was a simple act of mastery, dropping a habit that was no longer in harmony with the environment. Now, alcohol is viewed way more seriously. It's even called a rakshasa, which means a demon. And here's why. It's believed to literally punch holes in that protective nervous envelope we talked about, and through those holes, these parasitic vital entities can come in and basically hijack the person's consciousness. This is the yogic explanation for why people do things when they're drunk that they would never do sober, things they deeply regret later. So, what about psychedelics? Things like LSD. Many people think they're a shortcut to the divine, right? Well, from this perspective, that is a huge misunderstanding. The teaching here is that these drugs don't open doors to higher spiritual planes. They just break down the normal barriers of your own mind, causing the contents of your own subconscious, your hidden fears, your secret desires, your buried memories, to get projected outwards, and you experience them as if they're real. The visions are coming from you, not from somewhere else. Okay, so if these habits are lodged so deep in our mechanical nature, how in the world do you get rid of them? Well, the yoga doesn't just point out the problem, it actually gives you the tools, a clear internal technology for dealing with it. This is the practical toolkit. It's a really skillful process. First, you separate. You mentally take a step back and you watch the craving as if it's something outside of you. You realize, I am not this craving. This craving is just a thing happening. Second, you reject. You just quietly and persistently say no to it. This isn't a big, violent internal battle. It's just a calm refusal to give it energy. And third, and this is the most important part, you replace. You have to consciously fill that empty space left by the habit by calling in something higher, like a feeling of peace or strength. And this right here is such a critical warning. You know, nature hates a vacuum. If you just quit a habit and you leave this empty space, this void in your life, the old craving, or maybe something just as bad, is going to rush right back in to fill it. That space has to be actively, consciously filled with a positive, higher force. Otherwise, you're just setting yourself up to fail. So let's tie all of this together now. Why this intense, almost surgical focus on purity? What's the grand plan here? Well, it all comes back to that huge, ambitious goal of the yoga. This is probably the best analogy for the whole thing. Think of your body's nervous system as the electrical wiring in a house. Now, the higher spiritual force that this yoga wants to bring down, that's like a super high voltage current. And if the wiring, your nerves, is frayed or agitated or made impure by these substances, it simply cannot handle that level of energy. The result isn't a beautiful transformation. It's a short circuit, it's a nervous breakdown, or even a physical illness. So, at the end of the day, the crucial thing to take away is that this isn't about a bunch of arbitrary rules or being a Puritan. From the perspective of integral yoga, this is essential, practical, preparatory work. It's about engineering. It's about building a vessel that's strong enough, clear enough, and pure enough to safely hold and manifest a new, higher level of consciousness. And that really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. You know, regardless of your spiritual path, or even if you have one, this perspective asks a really powerful question. If you start to see your body and your consciousness as this incredibly fine-tuned instrument, what are your daily habits and choices actually tuning it for?